I want to start this video off by saying if these two most recent beta weekends are any indication, Battlefield is without any doubt in my mind absolutely back. I've been lucky enough to playtest this game on a couple of occasions over the past year, and what I'd played of those initial alpha builds I thought were fun, but I always remained cautious as I wanted to see how this was going to translate to the full release. And as we got closer to the game's full reveal, we saw the return of a single player campaign, a robust multiplayer experience, and the tease of a battle royale mode, with us finally getting the release date of October 10th, 2025. The difference this time around with Battlefield 6's reveal and rollout could not be more stark than back when 2042 was releasing in 2021. Obviously, that was during the height of COVID, and that impacted things for sure. But after initial alpha feedback fell on deaf ears and everyone was begging DICE to delay the game, it went ahead to launch in an absolute terrible state. And just like Battlefront 2 some years prior, DICE had to take time in post-release and basically remake the game from the ground up, reworking all the hero characters into your traditional class system, and then season by season, reworking the maps to better suit the Battlefield playstyle. And while I do think that 2042 is an okay game in its current state, it took nearly 2 years of post-launch content and fixing to get it to that point. 2042 did just also get a free update leading up to the release of Battlefield 6 with a free battle pass, the return of a fan favorite map, Iwo Jima, and tons of throwback cosmetics to older games, and newer rewards that you can earn for Battlefield 6. It's nice and all, but after playing these open beta weekends, it's a night and day difference between these two titles. And you really get the impression that DICE want to nail this one out the gate, and especially at a time where most of the internet isn't just vibing with COD at the moment, and the Black Ops 7 trailer and reveal went about as well as you'd expect. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still curious to check out this year's COD. I'm gonna play it, but if those two beta weekends are any indication, it's looking like DICE and the rest of the teams might be able to give Call of Duty a run for its money this year. If you do enjoy the video today, consider dropping it a like. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the performance here. I'm happy to report the Battlefield 6 beta ran great for me. I was on an RTX 4080 i7 13700 combo, and I won't get too far into the nitty gritty things because, yeah, it's a beta, you're going to have some small issues here and there. But the biggest thing that I want to mention is that I didn't encounter any crashes or major bugs across my 30 hours of playtime on both weekends. Weekend 1 personally was the best the game had ever felt. I had zero issues, but that second weekend was where I started to notice a lot more issues creep up. The game started to feel sluggish, I found myself dying around corners frequently, and the hit registration at times felt like it was delayed by a whole second. And I do wonder if this was just due to the sheer number of players that were jumping in for that first time, as DICE did announce this was their most successful beta launch ever, with over 500,000 players on Steam concurrently at one point, surpassing even the highest numbers achieved by Call of Duty. So to see the game be in a mostly stable state was a welcome sight, and that's also why you have these beta tests, so you can stress test it, hopefully iron out those issues from a technical point and networking side in order to ensure a smooth launch come that full release. So yeah, from a technical side of things, I'm not really going to dive into it too much, but like graphically it looked great, and obviously we won't definitively know how it's going to run until we see some of those larger maps as well, and then some of those campaign levels. So if you're curious about that performance wise, I'd check back on the release. When I ask you, what is Battlefield, what do you think of? What is the first thing that comes to mind? Because when I think of Battlefield, I think of a giant open map, tanks, jets, infantry rolling in, maybe a building being blown to bits, different squads running into that objective, dragging your buddy out of the building as you revive him. And in your head, you're thinking, okay, that's any Battlefield game ever. And you're right. But here in Battlefield 6, the way that they're able to nail that immersion and that feeling of being in a battle, I thought was superb. The way that tanks blast the buildings to pieces, the way the jet screams as it gets real low to the ground, the way the bullets kick up dirt as they impact surfaces, all these little things coupled with the return of classes and the much more traditional experience help Battlefield 6 truly feel like it's the next iteration in the franchise. And I truly don't think any of this would be possible without the help of the Battlefield community and the collaboration they've had with DICE and one Vince Zampella, who you might know as one of the old leaders of the original Modern Warfare 2 days, and he's one of the guys that helped create the Titanfall universe at Respawn. Now he's heading up the Battlefield division over at EA, and I couldn't think of a better guy to get Battlefield back on track. Battlefield 6 has been committed to player feedback and testing, and since early 2024, content creators have been playing and helping shape the game through each development cycle, then opening up that space to more and more members of the general public in 2025. These playtests have been crucial to the game's development and also what devs can build around based off suggestions and player feedback. Battlefield players don't want hero shooter abilities, they don't want hero shooter gimmicks. What they want is a simple assault, support/medic, engineer, and recon class with variations to those abilities and different gadgets to make those classes have their own unique and defined playstyle. Classes are making a return here in Battlefield 6 after they were done away with in 2042 and then later added back in sometime as post-launch content, which is a wild statement to say. Here in Battlefield 6, you've got your standard assault, support, engineer, and recon classes. It feels so damn good to have these back here off the rip because those were sorely missed in those early months of 2042. And you might say, Merc, why do you keep bringing up Battlefield 2042? That's because I've played over 300 hours of that game, and I think I've earned the right to shit on it every once in a while and call out some of those dumbass choices they've made. Now, back to Battlefield 6. Each class here in Battlefield 6 comes equipped with its own suite of perks that as you level up and progress throughout the match, you'll earn each of those different tiers, with the first 3 being passive ones that you earn and then you keep throughout the duration of that match. The 4th and final tier being a special active use ability like the enhanced repair tool for the engineer or the UAV scan for the recon class. These help fill out that particular role that you want to play while also giving you benefits that you won't find anywhere else. Locked weapons also remained a hot topic in the community since 2042, allowed you to run whatever weapon on whatever class. They did implement a bonus down the line. If you ran the correct weapon for each class, you'd get some sort of bonus, with that same system being implemented here in Battlefield 6. Personally, I can't tell a difference with the weapons being locked or not. I'm all for them being locked, just so as long as they give the SMGs to the medics, because please, it feels really weird carrying around this big ass LMG as I'm trying to revive my friends. That's the one thing that I would want them to change. Or maybe just make a medic class, maybe make it so the engineer is the one that has to throw down the ammo. Small things like that, I think that maybe they could tweak and change before that full release would help. The weapons themselves, I all thought for the most part handled incredibly well. They all felt great to shoot, they all sounded great. The M4 and the G36C were probably my 2 favorite weapons that I used over the duration of that beta period. And you've even got a firing range where you can go and you can test out all the different attachments on your weapons. The attachment system I thought was also really cool because it's based off of 100 points that you're given, and then each attachment that you add takes away from that point value. So you're going to be able to make some crazy builds, I'm sure, come that full release. And I think that the build crafting and weapon customization is going to be really interesting come that full release, since not all of the weapons were viable on every map. Speaking of the maps, here in the beta on that first weekend, one of the biggest things that you're going to notice right away is the return to 32v32 playstyle, with access to 4 smaller sized maps like the Iberian Offensive, Siege of Cairo, and Liberation Peak, with Empire State being added as a map for the second weekend, with your typical modes like Breakthrough and Conquest being available, and Rush being added on the second weekend. Breakthrough, easily my favorite game mode, and it has been since its inception, and then Conquest taking that close second. But the Rush mode, we got to talk about Rush a little bit, because that mode just was not fun to play, man. I don't know if it's the spawns, the number of players, maybe the actual spawns on the bomb sites, but that mode is something that I think needs a little bit more work before release. I also think that not all of the maps were designed with each of the game modes in mind, because I noticed that each map had its own sort of variety of gameplay. Empire State was strictly infantry-focused combat, where Siege and Iberian were more infantry and ground vehicle focused, with Liberation Peak being your much more traditional battlefield map with tanks, jets, infantry littering across that map. So it's nice to see that these maps have some variety when it comes to layout and what tools you'll be able to use. But out of all these maps, I would probably have to say that Siege of Cairo was probably the one that I enjoyed the most. It was the one that I got to play back in the alpha test until people started climbing on the rooftops, which got old pretty fast, or you had the mountains on Liberation Peak, which I do admit being guilty of, as you can see here in the gameplay, but that brought back some memories of the Battlefield 1 beta. I really love that each map felt like it belonged here within this Battlefield title, which was a big criticism of 2042, was that it just looked too clean at times. And they did go ahead and they did rework some of the maps, and it did okay, but you could just tell that that was not their true intention with the game when it first came out. Destruction is also a heavy feature here in this game, but it doesn't look like we're going to have full-on Levolution like past titles, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's just something I wanted to note here in case you were curious. The most common and biggest complaint that I've heard from from the community was that these maps in the beta felt very small. And I do agree with that for the most part, but DICE have come out and said that these are supposed to be on the smaller side of things when it comes to these maps, and we are going to see some larger classical style maps in that full release and beyond, so keep your eye on that space as well. For the first time in a long time, it feels like Battlefield may actually take the win when it comes to this year's head-to-head matchup with Call of Duty. Where Battlefield is going back to its roots, listening to player feedback, Call of Duty seems to stray further and further away with each yearly release. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy Call of Duty, because I still very much do, but I think it's very nice. It's very healthy to have competition and other options. And after seeing what Battlefield 6 aims to bring to the table, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. It's like that one meme of the guy walking down the street with his girlfriend and he sees the other girl walking down the street. Sort of same scenario in my mind. And I'm sure tons of people are going to play both. I know that I'm going to play both, but I am curious to see which one people end up sticking with in the long run. Battlefield does launch a whole month ahead of Black Ops 7's November 14th release date, so only time will tell on that front. The Battlefield 6 beta was truly a massive success, and I think that all the teams should be proud of its reception and the way that it's been received over these last couple of weeks. While I'm curious to see what comes next in terms of maps, weapons, and layouts, I think that the foundation and the core of the game is as solid as it's ever been, with clearly defined class roles and weapons that I'm sure are going to allow for some crazy build crafting come that full release. The large-scale combat and hectic nature of the game is also something they managed to nail, with plenty of new features shown off and coming in the full release. I think if DICE and all the other supporting studios across the campaign, multiplayer, and a rumored battle royale mode can address all these small issues, we're looking at possibly an all-timer here. That wraps it up here for me. If you did enjoy the video, consider dropping it a like and consider subscribing, clicking that notification bell so you can catch all my upcoming reviews and previews in the future. Check out my video that I did for Mafia: The Old Country. I did that last week. It's good. I enjoyed it. It's fine for the most part, but we've got Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater dropping next week, followed by the Indiana Jones DLC Order of the Giants on September 3rd. So if either of those games interest you at all, stick around. I'd love to have you around. And as always, if you did make it this far, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day. And this has been my preview of the Battlefield 6 beta. Thank you for watching.